Another Black Sash Trust, a group of civil society organizations endorsed by Advocate Thuli Madonsela and Zwelinzima Vavi, have called upon the Department of Social Development and the presidency to reconsider the termination of the Covid-19 special relief of distress grants. Now, the grants, which are set to be terminated at the end of January following an extension in October, the organizations have proposed that instead of terminating the grant, there should be an extension and increase of the Covid-19 SDR grants, reassessing the process and criteria for the grants, the inclusion of the caregiver SRD grants, whether they are receiving child support grants or not on behalf of children, and of course to urgently make progress towards the implementation of the long overdue Basic Income Guarantee Grant. On Thursday, the campaigners received a response to their letter from the Minister of Social Development. But I think to contextualize and give us more information, we are joined for an update on perhaps how far that process is with the Department of Social Development. Daddy Mabe, member of the Cash Transfer Working Group of the C19 People's Coalition, joins us. Daddy, a very good morning and thank you for joining us here on Weekend on Newzroom Afrika. I mean, we've heard for calls for that grant extension from ANC Alliance partners and civil society at large. I mean, just based on your meeting that transpired on Thursday, can you give us an update on the response to your engagements thus far?
Okay. The response from the ministry has been to at least apologize for not coming back to us on time, but promising to meet with us in a joint meeting together with the presidency as well as the national treasury. So we're just waiting for that meeting to materialize.
All right. So on the back of that apology and, of course, awaiting the announcement, we heard, as the ANC's Lekgotla wrapped up this past weekend, that the president did end off by saying that there were considerations in place for that extension. I just want to look at the SRD grants to date, perhaps how it's assisted around 7 million people already added to the already 17 million people that were recipients of grant benefits, prior to Covid-19. Walk us through your interactions with government, communications to date. What has been some of the biggest, barriers you're facing as you're calling for this extension? Also looking at the criteria assessments for those who have access to these grants.
We have had a number of challenges, to be quite honest, because on one hand, you find that the ministry in particular seems to be accommodating in terms of engagement. But, again, nothing of a substance comes from that because now there's also dependence on the treasury, which is extremely uncooperative. It's citing a lot of excuses as to why they don't think what we are putting forth is feasible. So it's a situation between talking to reasonable officials, but not having any progress in terms of the actual finalization of what needs to be done.
So, Daddy, on the back of that, I mean, as we await Treasury's response and government at large, as they consider the extension of the grants, I mean, I then want to look at some of the issues that are that are coming to the fore. We're looking at the caregiver grant. There's an anti-women rhetoric that has been highlighted to date. Also just looking at the extensions of the SRD grant at large. I mean, what are your demands at this point? How are you also hoping to reassess the criteria for those who will have access to it?
Look, there's a problem there with regard to their attempts to come up with a mixed test. And as far as the caregiver grants are concerned, we are being told that the women who are looking after children are already receiving something, as if they are receiving that child support grant for themselves, And these are usually women who are not employed, And now our challenge there is that this thing of apportioning caregiver grants as if it's a women, it's covering, it's accommodating women who are taking care of the children. It's unfair. It's actually gender discriminatory. And now we're having a situation where in SASSA, it's not accepting our argument to say, in a way, they are actually excluding women, and they are making now the SRD grant to become a male grant, to be quite honest, because over 60% to 70% of people that are receiving the SRD grants are male.
So, Daddy, I just want to then consider, the communication from SASSA at large, looking at some of the criterion that they had issued regarding the extension of those who still have access to the grants. Obviously, since it had been extended in October, looking at those considerations, I mean, it's been highlighted that no new applicants will be considered after the 31st of January, and also the appeal process will run up until for those who have not collected their SASSA grants until the 31st of March 2021. I just want to know what measures will be put in place after engagements with government if demands are not met, if your demands go unheard. I mean, what is the next step for you as an organization?
Look, we'll escalate our campaign, but let me quote one Tulima Tontala said in our previous engagement with the government. She quoted something which I found to be very profound. She says, nothing happens without a cause. And again, Comrade Mabe said something yesterday, says, what is the cause of ignoring these signs, and not implementing these grants? Now you see what is happening to the infrastructure. We've got a lot of crime. Without us going into campaigns, already there's activity on the ground that tells you that something abnormal is taking place here. People are forced now to survive on their own. And when that happens, you have a mayhem because now people will do anything to survive. And that is the cause, that is the problem. On our side, we'll follow the correct channels, we'll escalate our campaigns, but that is not helpful enough because now we've got an uncontrollable situation which is taking place on its own. So the government must just understand that it's not between us and them. We are partners here in trying to solve or avoid the social ill that it will be very difficult to reverse.
I mean, just off the back of what you were saying, Daddy Mabe, of course, a member of the Cash Transfer Working Group of the C19 People's Coalition. Thank you very much for joining us on Weekend Dawn. Perhaps just speaking about the calls for the extension of the social relief of distress grants, obviously trying to mitigate against the humanitarian crisis that could perhaps could come about as a result. And of course, leading to people, exercising acts of desperation.